All right. Good morning. Good morning, 1Million Cups, Daytona Beach. How are you guys? Oh, come on. We're going to take root. We're going to get going. Wake up. Good morning, 1Million Cups, Daytona Beach. I am Tyler LeCompte. I'm joined by Steve Keeler and a crew of organizers here. Welcome to our event. We got a lovely speaker today, but first time attendees. I feel like there's a lot in the room. Can we see some hands, first time attendees? Anybody? Yeah, thank you. All right, welcome. Welcome. We're very excited to have you. Thank you very much for coming. For you guys, 1Million Cups is a entrepreneurial networking event put on in 170 plus cities across the country every Wednesday, put on by the Kauffman Foundation out of Kansas City. So thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the 1MC Nation. We meet here every Wednesday, 9 a.m. It's free. We'd love to have you guys, so feel free to join us. If you can't, we do have a Facebook Live streaming, so feel free to check that out later and share it. We've got a wonderful speaker that I'm going to let my man Steve Keeler here introduce, because he's been a longtime friend and a former employee of our speakers. So with further ado, Stevie.
Thanks, Tyler. Tyler mentioned that there are 175 chapters around the United States. We're almost on top of the list, certainly from attendance, from enthusiasm. But I'll tell you one thing, even those chapters that are all meeting right now, same time, different cities, none of them have got a speaker like we've got today. And he's got his team with him. First of all, let me introduce Nancy Lohman. Nancy is probably the best value-added marketing expert in this country that I've met. Used to work for Eastman Kodak. Younger brother Victor Lohman, who ran the tough side of the business. Victor was in operations in the funeral home and cemetery business. And Victor, I've met a couple of thousand of those cats. And you're about as good as they get. And your properties showed it. And now, I'd like to introduce Lohman, the spearhead behind the company and the family business for many years. They've owned over 60 properties and bought them all, built them, value added to them, and never had a loser. So, without ado, let me introduce Lowell. You're in for a real treat.
It's kind of hard to follow Steve, but I'll tell you, the person you don't want to ever follow is Nancy Lohman. So anytime she and I talk, I try to make sure that I usually talk up front a little bit. Before we really get into the meat of why we're here today and everything, Ed Wilkes, would you stand up, please? This is a very special guy, and that book that you have in front of you, hopefully everyone has one. If you don't, please let Nancy know. But Steve and everybody else says that, by the way, I am not an author. I did not write that book, okay? I think Ed came to our home and interviewed me probably half a dozen times, and Victor 3 to 4, and Nancy 3 to 4, and our other son, Ty, that is out of the country right now. But I want to make a statement. The pure fact that you were in this room this morning speaks volumes about you. Stop and think about that a little bit. Every one of you in here are really looking to learn and make connections and that type of thing. And that's one of the keys, to being successful. So when I talk today, I'm going to basically break it up into two different parts to a degree. I'm going to talk first about you personally. Okay, we all have things we probably do great. We probably have things we don't do too great. And so that's going to be the two. The business end of it will be the second half, just to let you know. But if you don't have the first part and the first half down pretty much, you'll probably struggle with the second part of it. But okay, everybody can see that up there. Let me. Some of you, I don't know if you're writing or whatever. When I get to the end, you will see. My brother and my wife think I'm crazy, but that is our address. Nancy's and mine. That's our phone number. Okay, there's some crazy people out there. Okay, so anyway, at the end I'll address it. If any of you would like to speak individually later or whatever, just call that number. We'll arrange a time and spend some time together and that type of thing. But let me, how many of you know who General Patton is? You're telling your age, okay? So I just want to let you know that. I spoke one time with a real young group, and half the people there had never heard of General Patton. He was, for some of you that may not know, he was the #1 American general in World War II. And when the United States entered the war, the big battle was actually going in North Africa. And the British, the Germans were just kicking the British's butt and all over the place. And it's called the Battle of El Alamein. And that's the first battle that Americans really were involved in. And obviously General Patton, was our main general. When the Americans met the Germans, and General Patton was watching the battle, they both, by the way, were tank commanders. So it's got a lot of tanks in it and everything. And as the battle progressed, there was a moment, and there were some hills around where the tanks were battling down there. And there's a moment to where General Patton had 2 or 3 of his generals around him, and they were on top of a hill watching the battle as it was going on. And there's a moment to where General Patton says, "Ramo, you bastard, I read your book." Stop and think about that a little bit. What's the #1 thing? And they've done research on this. They went back and took millionaires and multimillionaires and that type of thing. What's the #1 trait that all of them seem to have in common?
The readers.
Everyone wants to be a millionaire. Every one of you in here want to be a millionaire. If you don't read, unless you have an uncle that's going to give you a heck of a lot of money the rest of your life and that type of thing, if you don't attack and read, you probably will not get to that level. Not that that's important to everybody, but the answer is, I think if you care enough, you should try, to do that type of thing. So you must really want it. That sounds very simple. How many of you really want to be successful? If you don't change, 90% of you, some of you maybe not, but 90% of you can be a heck of a lot better. I hope by the time we get through today, I will tell you the truth. It may hurt a little bit, but there are certain traits that all successful people have, and there are certain traits that all non-successful people have. So we'll address those today. Every day successful people have a system. They have habits that they have. I tell people all the time, I tell them, I'm not the most detailed person in the world, but I am pretty smart. You want to know why? I got the most detailed person I've ever seen in my entire life sitting back here, okay? So I'm not very detailed, but I am incredibly structured. Stop and think about it a little bit. There's a difference. They're not the same thing, okay? So most of you go to work, you come home from work, 6 o'clock, you relax a little bit, you get a bite to eat. What do you do every night from 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock? And let me raise your hands. Let's be honest, it's a learning process here today. What do you do? Yes, go ahead.
Right.
You write. You're on the right path, okay? Write and read. Good for you. Nancy, give me one of those books. I know you're saving them. At the end of this session, it costs $13. It's the easiest reading I've ever read. What's the title of that book?
How money works.
Do you know how money works? You're probably not going to be a millionaire. I'm going to challenge all of you to get, that's not important, but I'm going to challenge you to get better. Here's your first book, okay? For the rest of it, by the way, we don't have thousands of books laying around, okay? So Amazon for $13 is all that book costs. And it's real easy reading. So that's kind of my challenge to you. What do you do all night from 6 to 11?
Drink beer and read.
Okay. It's like you got the reading part. I'm not sure you comprehend 3 days later, but I don't want to just blow by that. What do you do?
Eat, exercise, and read.
Yes.
Most people watch television.
By the way, it's coming pretty soon, okay? It's coming pretty soon. I'm not saying do whatever, but I have to tell you, I'm pretty structured, and I do this almost every night. Yes?
I read, walk on the beach, generate ideas for books, and go to civic meetings. But I
Yeah.
notice that I don't write enough.
Yeah.
It's a big block of time to do no, not enough writing.
Good for you. You know, the crazy thing is, see, you already know where you can improve. So keep, any other comments? Yes.
I research my emails through my business and gather ideas and form a constructive plan to increase business
Good for you.
and to follow up with my
Yeah.
customers.
I will tell you what I do almost every day. I've been doing it like forever. I watch the national news from like 6:30 to 7. I watch CNN for like a half an hour. I watch the national news for like a half an hour, and I normally leave the TV and go in the office and read every night for a couple hours. All of us need some joy in our life and that type of thing. How many of you watch the Big Bang Theory? It's on twice a week, okay? When that comes on, Nancy and I both stop what we're doing. We stop what we're doing and we go watch TV. Now I have to tell you, my wife pretty well has that schedule. She probably, Nancy, do you know anybody that reads more than me?
No, I don't.
Except maybe Nancy, okay? So that is important. Habit. You guys know who they are?
Yes.
Bill Gates reads a book every week. Every week. Both those two guys up there, Warren Buffett, you talk about investments and that type of thing, we all know he's, in the last 50 years, he's considered the best with investments and how you do it. He's the fourth or fifth wealthiest in the country. Berkshire Hathaway is one of the four or five largest companies in the country, which surprises people. Those two guys find quiet time every day. It's built into their schedule, okay? So quit wasting that 5 hours a night, okay? Waste 2 or 3, but take another 2 or 3 to learn the business and improve yourself. And by the way, that's what successful people do, okay? Turn the TV off. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
Turn the TV off. Watch whatever it is, but have a structure there. You turn the TV on at 6 or 7, and you turn it off at 11 o'clock, and you stay in that TV, and I'll guarantee you half of what you're watching on TV you don't really care about. It's just, you just are in the habit of watching every day in the newspaper. It lists all the good programs. I can't say I do it every day, but every 2 to 3 days, I go through and see what's going to be on TV tomorrow, and I circle it if it's important. But I make sure I've got those couple hours there. And you have to make quiet time also, okay? To read or do whatever you really want to do. The single common trait in most successful people, they read. How many of you go to Barnes & Noble? Next time you go there, you know, the little shop to where you can get lunch and that type of thing, and they have sandwiches and everything there. Ask if one of the girls is behind there, ask them if they know Mr. Lohman.
Abraxas books.
She's laughing. Do I?
Abraxas books too.
No, practice. Okay, good for you. Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay. Here's my habit, and here's what I do. Is it common knowledge in our family that I disappear and go to Barnes & Noble a lot?
You do that a lot.
Every time I'm in this city and I'm having to drive, and you got an appointment at X number o'clock, and you got an appointment at X number o'clock, and that type thing. Every time there's a few minutes, guess where I go? Every 30 days, the books that are there change, okay? They get books and everything, and obviously I can tell you there's not a book in the business section of Barnes & Noble that I have not at least thumbed through. And you get to the point to where you actually enjoy it. If you'll try it and do it. Most of you are sitting there, well, I don't read too much and everything, I'm not. Can I tell you something? You can do a lot better. And my answer back to you is it's the only way I know to get more knowledge, to run a business, how you start it, what you do with it, and that type of thing. So my challenge to you, more than any one thing right here, is if you really want to be successful and take care of your family and travel and do all those other things that are important in your life, you need to work on you a little bit, okay? So question yourself about that. If you're not doing that and you're not reading, I know it's natural for some people and not for others, you can, my answer to you, I'll tell you the truth, you're probably too lazy, okay? How tough is that, Victor? Okay? You're probably too lazy, okay? Get in there and start improving yourself. This is a great clip that I'll just step back and let you listen, okay?
Good afternoon, and the 146 is ready to proceed.
Mr. Smith, just a minute. I'll just check with you. He's just boarded.
Okay, go, go, go!
Municipal line, this is the 146. Mr. Smith, can you look outside? There's a message for you.
How many of you got goosebumps? I've seen it tons. I got goosebumps, I promise you. That's the kind of company you want to work for. I challenge you. That's the kind of company you want to build, okay? It's not complicated, okay? And I wish that was Delta Airlines. I'm sure we all do, okay? But when you go to that extent, it's pretty good. Here is something that you need to start doing right now today. Who's the most negative person in your life? Just think of their first name. By the way, 95% of you in here right now, already that name has already hit your brain. It's already hit your brain. There's a lot of heads doing this, okay? Let me make you a suggestion. Who's the most positive person in your life? Your son. That's a great answer. I wish my son would say that, but I doubt he does. Okay, so who's the most negative person? That person is hurting you. You are who you surround yourself with. I said earlier, the pure fact that you people are in this room speaks volumes about you. Speaks volumes about you wanting to learn, about you wanting to get better in everything. Watch this. What's that person's first name? Negative. First name only.
John.
John. First name.
Laura.
Laura. First name. Watch this. It must be family. I understand that.
Can't fire him.
Yeah. Who is the most positive person you know? Yes, one name.
Darlene.
Darlene. Oh, great answer. Megan. Okay. Yes.
Laura.
Laura. Yeah. Watch this. Every one of you know both those names. I have to tell you this. These two people have heard me very few times get up and talk about, building your business and doing that time that I do not bring this up. You need to think about it. You need to spend less time with that negative person and spend as much time as you can with that positive person. And without you knowing it, you will improve yourself drastically. By the way, over the years, I think there are 24 people that have told me I cause their divorce, for whatever it's worth, okay? And the other sad thing about it is usually that negative person is family. Boy, look, I mean, there's half the people in this room, their heads are going, yep, we know exactly who they are, okay? You cannot get rid of family, okay? I want to tell you that. But the bottom line answer is try to spend more time with the positive people in your life, and it will trickle down to you, okay? Build important relationships. Boy, you guys are right on top of it today. I talked to 3 or 4 people this morning that this is not just one of the organizations that you belong to that will improve you and that type of thing. That's incredibly important that you surround that. Network. Bankers. How many of you know the name of the bank president, even if it's a branch, the person in charge, and more importantly, the person that handles the loans? How many of you know their first name right now? Be honest. How many of you know? Well, here's what you have. About a third of you, the hands aren't going up, okay? Here's a mistake you made. Even if you put $100 and open up a checking account at a bank, doesn't make any difference. Even if you put $100 in there, you owe it to yourself to get to know, hopefully, the bank president, and if not, the loan officer. Why? Don't networking is with your buddies and everything. If you don't have good banking, a good friend of ours, Gail Emron, I'll help you with this. He had a phrase, and he would say, "You cannot create wealth without debt." Now, there are some of you out there, and there are exceptions to that. They're pretty lucky in that type of thing. But, having a job and going day to day is one thing. But if you really want to create wealth so that in your later years you can enjoy it, everything, I agree with that statement, probably 80%, not 20%. But sooner or later, you're going to need financing. If you want to grow your company or whatever further. Okay? So make it a point to know who the key people are there. Coming to this organization today is outstanding. How Money Works, that book that I gave you, hold it up if you can for a second. By the way, Nancy's going to give some more out. We don't have enough to give every one of you one, but she's going to give some out at the end of the session today. But how many of you know what you're worth? I'm going to shock you. Half of you in here, the hands didn't go up. You got to start there, okay? That book will help you. There's a whole chapter in there that says calculating net worth, plus a bunch of other stuff that you can do. Income and wealth. Someone tell me the difference between that, between income and wealth.
Income is cash flow. Wealth is net worth. Yes.
Good answer. Income is what you're living off. You have to buy groceries, you have to pay for your car, you have to do all those other type things. But income is where you're getting income from that. Wealth is when you get to a point, and hopefully you will, that by the time you pay your monthly bills and everything, there's some left over. What do you do with that money? What are you going to invest it in?
Real estate.
Okay. When's the last time you read a book on real estate?
The past couple days.
Couple days. I like you a lot already. Nancy, give me one of those books. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. You're a lot prettier than I am, Nancy. Deliver that, please.
That's true.
You have to know the difference. That book that is right there dissects it. I could read, by the way, the first 2/3 of it is, how the government handles money, all the other type stuff. The back third of that book is all about when you buy a house, when you run a business. The back third will be where you'll focus and should focus most of your time right there. It dissects everything from 401ks to blah, blah, blah. Anything that has to do with money is in that book. I wish we had, 30 or 40 of them to give everybody one today. They're $13, okay? Investing in property. The number one way that most successful people got started, one way or the other, unless their family gave them, the money and everything, is they started, and it had something to do with real estate. When I went to college, I know it's hard to believe, but when I went to college, I know there's a bunch of Gators in here, so I'm not going to tell everybody where I went to school. But at Florida State, I majored in biology and chemistry. As a young boy growing up, I didn't have a lot of, our dad worked for the Postal Service, was a very hard worker and everything. But when I was growing up, I loved biology. But by the time I got out of college, what do you do with that? Teach? You know, be one of the 1 out of 100 that'll get some grant from some. So bottom line answer is, that's part of when I started reading more and more. If you don't understand financial statements, I suggest it's in that book, okay? But the whole ball of wax is what will make you successful. But usually, it has something to do with real estate and property. The first time I started, creating a little bit of wealth and everything was when I graduated from college. I bought a house. After 2 years, I was with a company that had distributorships around Florida. After a couple years, the value of the house I bought went up. The debt went down, okay? And the other thing is, anytime you have a house, you are helping your credit rating, so that when you go to get a loan or something like that, you have it. I took that house. After 2 years, I sold it. I bought a distributorship on the east coast of Florida, around Vero Beach, but I started a distributorship. I went through 3 or 4 years, did very good. The economy crashed, the entire industry. It was a major learning process for me. Different businesses are up and down with the economy. And if you're not aware of that, you need to be aware of it. I'll just give you an example. Most of you associate us with Lohman Funeral Homes, right? Ty remembered, I don't know where we had dinner at one night. Ty remembers 6 years ago when us Lohmans, there are 4 of us, when us Lohmans together sat down, and I asked the question of the other 3 of them. I said, are these businesses, and at that time we were the largest owner of funeral homes and cemeteries in Florida. We've owned 34, okay? And we sat down, and I asked the question. I said, are our businesses going to be worth more or less in 5 years? I think I already knew the answer. And we all together said, probably less. Any of you heard of cremation? It used to be, back in the day, 25%. I don't know what it is now. It's probably 70 or 80. So we made the decision that we went to the 5 biggest guys in the country in the funeral and cemetery business. Like, keep in mind, we were independent and we were the largest in Florida. So we had the big guys hitting us all the time. We made the decision that cremation was not going away. The margins were getting smaller. People they're more transient today. That deal of, your whole family being together forever, that still works, and it should. But bottom line answer is, Billy Joe and Susie are going to go to Chicago or somewhere, okay? So it's affecting the business. When we sold, it was trading, the company that bought us was trading at $28 a share. Do you know what it is right now? 6. The funeral industry has changed. Businesses change. You better change with them if you want to be successful. Okay? The economy. Now hang with me. I know there's probably a lot of contractors and people like that. When it's on top, man, you can make a heck of a lot of money. How often, every 7 or 8 years, you guys are aware that every 7 or 8 years, the economy will change probably, okay? And what happens is construction's booming right now. We all know that, right? You think it's going to keep booming 5 years from now or 8 years from now? Okay, just be very aware of it. Nancy always kicks me when I use numbers, but it's hard for me to explain it. She's going to kick me anyway, but it's hard for me to explain it without doing this. We did the same thing with the apartment business. How many of you know Jeff Brock? Oh, that's nice. Next time you see him, you ask him. He's handled over 100 transactions for all us Lohmans. 100%, okay? Jeff Brock tells everybody, I hear it from people all the time, he says, I have never seen anyone in my life that are as lucky and figured out when was the right time to buy and when was the right time to sell, okay? I'll kick it back to you, and I'll go to the apartment inn. I already told you the funeral inn. That's when we made that decision 6 years ago. Everybody in the funeral industry tells us we were the smartest guys they'd ever seen because we sold 6 years ago when it was at its peak. In the last year and a half, she's going to kick me, in the last year and a half, we've sold 15 apartment complexes for over $200 million. Is she staring hard at me now? Let me, when we started buying 4 or 5 years ago, apartments were selling for $25,000 to $30,000 a door, which is an apartment, okay? We are now selling them for $70,000 a door. It's time, okay? So I just want to tell you, you have to pay attention to that, okay? 3 reasons to take apartment. Only 3. If you got some other reason out there, don't do it, okay? The first one is you need an investment. I'm going to go find somebody that will invest in my company, okay? The second thing is you need someone with more experience than you do. My brother and I were in the funeral cemetery business a long time ago together. As soon as we bought Bellevue Cedar Hill, which is now Daytona Memorial Park, how hard did I beg you to come back to work? You need experience. The third one to take a partner is family. It's family. I went out by myself for a while and I realized it wasn't the same. I miss family, okay? And a lot of you in here, it sounds like you've got family involved in your business. I got to tell you, that's what, you know, if you're by yourself and you go buy something or build something, guess who gets happy about it? Just you, okay? I miss that. So anyway, the Lohmans are pretty tight, and that's okay. Every business has a moment. I mentioned that before. Timing is very important. Contractors, you better be aware of the fact that it is booming right now, and there's all kinds of jobs out there and everything. As time goes by and more houses are built and that type of thing, it'll change on you. Okay, so you need to totally be aware of that. We all know people that were in the construction business that have been called probably 2 to 3 times over the lifetime. You just need to be aware of that. Mortgage rates are the highest in 7 years. Home prices are at the highest ever and going up. So what should that tell your brain?
Buy now. Sell. You ready for shit?
Here it is. Here it is. The economy every 8 to 15 years, and 8 is usually the good one, changes. Okay? So there's 4 levels. One is when it's booming. And then it goes from when it starts to slow down. Where's our economy right now? Comments. Yes, I want to hear. Where do you think at what level? And then you've got the slump and then starting to recover. Where do you think our economy is now?
Recovery.
Do what?
Boom, going right.
You're exact. Okay, some other comments? Who had the comment over there? Where do you think our economy is now?
90%.
Recovery toward a boom.
I'll tell you where us Lohmans think it is, okay? Because we discuss it too. If you were to ask me, how many new homes are being built in Daytona right now? They're all over the place. How long before you think that they're going to have the supply is going to outdo the demand?
Maybe right now. 12 months.
I have to tell you.
2 years.
Give me that book, Nancy. Give me that. They're going to all be going here pretty good. Watch this. There you go. You got it right. Here's what you have. Go to the boom. I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, this economy is booming. It still is booming. It still is booming. If you were to ask me, thanks, Nancy. If you were to ask me, it's somewhere between the boom and the slowdown. Now, what does it say under the boom? What does it say under there?
Seller's market.
We saw it coming. As us Lohmans analyze it, we think it's got maybe another couple years, 2, maybe 3 years, something like that, okay? Then it goes down to the slowdown. It's still the seller's market. If you own real estate right now, whatever, every business has a moment. Take a serious look. Is this the moment? Because what happens is that when it goes down here to the third, you see that says buyer's market, right? And then the next one is the recovery. It's still the buyer's market. We started buying apartments 4 or 5 years ago when the economy was booming. Okay, it still is to a degree, but at some point it's going to go down. So anyway, pay attention to that. That'll determine how successful you are. Economies of scale. If it works, do it over and over and over and over. How many of you watch TV, the channel, sometimes they have these guys that are flipping houses? Yeah. Oh, you're a flipper. I'm the proudest flipper you've ever seen in your life. Here's my suggestion to some of you that haven't gotten started yet. First thing you do is buy a house. Now hang with me. We own we owned over 4,000 apartments, right? I'm telling you, you do not want to rent one of those apartments from us. I'm old enough I can tell the truth, right? You do not want to buy one of those apartments. If you are renting right now, you are losing money every month. And if anybody tells you something different, you get me on the phone, okay? If you are renting, you're losing money. When they analyze older retired people and they take their assets and their financial statement, guess what's the number one asset they have? Their house. And a good portion of those have no other assets. Not all, but a good portion of them have no other assets. Do you know why their big asset is their home? Because when you buy a home, it forces you to make money. It forces you to create wealth. Every month, are you making a payment every month? Is your balance going down every month? Are you getting the advantage of the interest that you can take off every month? Okay, so my suggestion to you, if some of you are at that point right now, do everything it takes to buy a house. Now, let me take you a couple steps further than that. Once you buy that house, fix it up, sell it, right? Now, whatever money you had over here when you bought that first house, you got double into the second one. Y'all following the process? After you get the second one, clean it up, fix it up, sell it. Now, whatever you had here, you got twice over here. Get you a good contractor, because most of you are probably not real mechanical, okay? When we, over the years, we've owned 4 funeral homes and cemeteries. He's running the funeral homes and cemetery, and on the weekends and everything, he's looking for sales, foreclosures, the whole type thing. He bought 8 or 9 condos and homes. And he's still working for us. Supposed to be helping make money for the 3 of us here, but at the spare time he had, he did that, okay? Then he went to apartments, 15, 20 unit apartments. His net worth started going up and going up and going up. It was that first home he bought that got him started, okay? So some of you out there that aren't sure what to do, that's exactly what to do. And those TV programs, when they come, when you see them, they're doing this and doing this with houses. That's exactly the way half the successful people in this country got to that point. Because at some point you had no money. How are you going to generate money? Okay? That's how you do it. You do one, watch this. When we were in the funeral and cemetery business, were we in any other business at all?
No.
34 funeral homes and cemeteries. We didn't own anything else. How often do we get hit by people that have all these businesses and everything? Often. We stay focused. We stayed focused on it, okay? We did the same thing in the funerals. We had the first one, Daytona Memorial, not Daytona, but Volusia Memorial Park was our first one, okay? We got that one, generated pretty good stuff. Then we went and bought 2 more, and it just kept going, okay? But we were not distracted. I know some people that got 8 different businesses in 8 different industries. God bless them. Today's the day, okay? You can change some of those habits and everything today. Have a good talk to yourself tonight and this afternoon, okay? Go back, Nancy. Successful people do the things unsuccessful people are not willing to do. It ain't gonna happen by itself. You need to make yourself better. The only way you're gonna do it is really get involved, being involved with these associations. There are a lot of business. How many of you in here own a part of a business, or all of you? Raise your hand if you own the business. Pretty cool. Well, watch this. It is a good room. By the way, I knew that going in, and I knew I was going to ask this question. That speaks volumes about you people in here. It's not simple. It's not easy. It always takes money, okay? But that's pretty incredible. That's one of the reasons I thoroughly enjoy talking to you guys, okay? But don't forget that. Okay, create wealth. Protect your credit. How many of you know what global entry is? I should ask how many don't know. Most people don't. When you take a trip on an airplane and you're in all these lines, these long lines, and all of a sudden there's a line over here, and these people are going boom, 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 right up to taking their ticket immediately and getting on that plane. That's global entry. Okay? So think about this, all right? About 2-3 years ago, Nancy already had hers, no surprise. About 2 or 3 years ago, I had to go to, Nancy and I went to Sanford, which is where the government has the people that, check your background, check everything. They're not going to let you slip through all that stuff and everything if there's any doubt, okay? And they turn down about half of the people that apply for it. We go over to get Mia, right? And we wait longer than I thought we should, but anyway, and all of a sudden, this guy comes out, takes me back in the room, and he says, Mr. Lohman, I need to ask you a couple questions. He said, do you have anything on your record in the past that you need to make me aware of? I thought for a few minutes. There are a lot of you in here really laughing inside right now. Okay? So I said, I only know of 2 things that might be on my record. And I said, one was my freshman year of college. I had 2 of my roommates. We were in a car driving somewhere, and another car pulled up, and we started jabbering. You know how it is when you're 18 years old, right? Bottom line answer is both cars pulled over in a filling station, right? There were some words exchanged, and all 6 of us ended up in jail. Place rolled in with the lights all over the place. The 6 of us are like this. They put us in jail. Quite an experience. They put us in jail, and then they called all our parents, and we got out in a couple hours, okay? But it was a learning process, okay? So who would think to bring, so I said, it was actually in All Galley, Florida, which is just below Cocoa, okay? So I said that. Here's the kicker. I said, the only other thing that I know may be on my record, because it came up, one time years ago, is I said, the only other thing, I said, when I was going to Florida State, I bounced a check for $20 to the Florida State bookstore. True story. To the Florida State bookstore. And I said, that's the only 2 things that I can think of. And he says, Mr. Lohman, you are an honest man. He said, I have both of those on my screen right now. So I'm sitting there, right? And he said, we need a statement from the bookstore stating that you paid them back 30, 40 years ago, right? But here's what else he said. he said, and by this time he and I had got to be pretty good buddies, right? And he said, you would not believe the stories that people come up with. He said, I sat here every day doing this. He said, and then he said, the good news, he said, is I also see a lot of the stuff your family's done for your community and everything. So he said, and what, Nancy, I think, called up to Tallahassee, got the Florida State bookstore. We got the letter, and I got it. Now, what's the learning process from all of that?
Keep good credit.
Tell the truth.
If your credit's bad now, you need to start working on it, because you will not get to that millionaire category. Because those bankers are pulling up that same thing. So if you have something, I talked to Bethune-Cookman a couple months ago and everything, and I told all those students, I said, a good portion of you have student loans, right? Well, I'm going to graduate. I'm not going to worry about that loans and everything. Let me tell you, that'd kill your credit for the rest of your career. You got to pay those loans off. So that's just a challenge to all of you. You think it doesn't matter? Boy, it matters. Okay. Your first goal needs to be buy a house. Don't rent. The house appreciates. You reduce the debt, and it builds your credit. What better way to start creating wealth with one house? Then turn it into 4 houses, then 8 houses, then buy a 20-unit apartment building, okay? It's not complicated. How many of you read the news journal every week? Okay? Where are you going to find the house to buy? Well, I'm going to tell you something I did about a month ago. You go to Google and you punch up houses in Daytona for sale. And then you punch up. Okay. And then you punch up foreclosures. And let me help you. Don't just do it on houses. Do it on businesses. I punched up businesses in foreclosure a month ago, and I was shocked and could not believe it. There are tons of businesses out there right there. Banks have to take businesses over every now and then. Banks sometimes will almost give you that house so they can get it off their books. Well, you have each weekend not doing anything. Go to your computer, look it up, get 2 or 3 things, call that person. You may not be, you may not be buying it or whatever, but it's a learning process for you, okay? That's how you find ways to create wealth.
5 minutes, Lowell.
Okay?
5 minutes.
Sunday newspaper. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Read the Sunday paper. It's always got houses and businesses for sale. I buy you, watch this. A lot of you have a job. Some jobs make great money. Some don't. Some don't. Be smart. Pick a profession that does generate money for you, okay? Apartment Millionaire. That's kind of a book that I've got. You can go online and get that too. That applies to the apartment business if any of you wanted to do that. Okay, Nancy, what's the next? Stock market. We discussed Warren Buffett a little while ago, right? You know who he is. Any of you know who John Bogle is?
Yes.
Who is John Bogle?
Mutual fund Vanguard.
He started Vanguard. I don't work for Vanguard. It doesn't make any difference, okay? But those are 3 of the, I think, best authorities on investments and things you can do to improve yourself. What's this? Do cemeteries and funeral homes have trust funds?
Yes.
When you and I kind of got into the business a little bit, we had trust funds back then, right?
Yes.
How long ago was that?
Late 70s.
40 years ago? What? 40 years ago. Okay? Read that. Think about it. Oh, I hope I'm sure there's stockbrokers and financial advisors in there. Hang in here, guys. Okay. There are over 4,000 brokerage firms Banks today have an investment thing that you can buy stock and everything now too. Over 4,001 company is having more. Now that's not old money that's there that nobody's touching. This is new money right now today going into those 4,000 other companies. There's more going in Vanguard than all the other ones combined. I challenge a financial advisor stock over here to say that's not true. Why? Next question. Why? First of all, I meant to ask this. How many of you are in the stock market? Okay. Man, that's good. Can I tell you something? That's not a coincidence. A lot of hands went up because you got your own business. You did it in that time. At some point, hopefully you create more money than you're spending on yourself now. And that's probably where 90% of all of us basically go to, okay? But I want you to think about this. Why is it all going in one company? Yes. Yes.
Low-cost passive investing typically with your indexes, I guess. What's your book?
Give me a book. Okay, thanks,
I
man.
get a book if I say that.
Thanks. Now watch. We all know who he is, right? Nobody would even attempt to say that guy doesn't know what he's doing. All right? Warren Buffett to his heirs, put my estate in index funds. Every broker and financial advisor panics when you say that. And then they'll tell you, well, we've got index funds. They do. But with them, you're paying all these fees and all these other charges. Here's what's happened. More and more people are reading, and the general public is finding out, why am I paying all those fees when I don't have to? Vanguard does not have brokers. They have people there that will help you through the whole process, okay? But let me just read this. And you see it says a paragraph that changed Wall Street. This is the paragraph that changed it. My advice to the trustees couldn't be simpler. Put 10% of the cash in short-term government bonds and 90% in a very low-cost Standard & Poor's 500 index. I suggest Vanguard's. I believe the trust long-term results from this policy will be superior to those attained by most investors, whether pension funds, institutions, or individuals who employ high-fee managers. That's Warren Buffett. My wife won't let me say and do numbers. Every dime we own is with one company in one fund. Now, 10% of the other brokerage firms out there will probably beat this. But I got to tell you something. When you think your broker, whatever, is smarter than all those guys in New York, how good you got to be to get in that 10%? So I have to tell you, Warren Buffett's advice is put it right there. Every dime we have is with one company in one fund. And we smile a lot. Okay? So if any of you want to talk more detail with the other thing, I'll be happy to talk to you. But the majority of you are giving money away right now, okay? Always search for ways to do random acts of kindness. Drives my brother Victor and our son Ty crazy. How often you see me, you know where I'm going, don't you? How many times a week do you think I do that?
Every week.
Many as you can.
Nancy and I probably give away $500 or $600 a week, every week. When's the last time you had somebody wait on you in a restaurant and you gave them? A lot of you do 20 bucks, I hope. When's the last time you gave them 50? But you have to be at a different situation. That's called random acts of kindness. Most of you probably don't have the ability to do that right now. Us Lohmans are pretty fortunate, okay? Drives Ty and Victor crazy. I do it all the time. I do it all the time. But you've got to get to that level and everything to where it doesn't matter 100%. Again, forgive me for doing that. Nancy's going to chastise me tonight, okay? But random acts. Here's the other thing you have to realize. A good friend of ours, when he read the book, that's incredibly successful, and 90% of you know who I'm going to talk about, but I'm not going to give you the names. When he read it, I believe there's a phrase out there that someone described me with a long time ago, and I kind of liked it, and it stuck. And the answer is, if you're in business and you're running your businesses and all that type thing and everything, most people think you have to be a jerk to be successful in business. That is wrong. That is wrong. The person that made a comment about the book said, Lowell, I didn't realize you were so nice in business. He kind of meant that as a slap. That's the best compliment I think I've ever gotten. Okay? It takes that much more to do the right thing with your company, with your employees, and take care of them and everything. But this is you have to enjoy life. You have to enjoy life, okay? And if you don't have some humor in there, remember I mentioned earlier, you know, what is it? The TV thing we watch every night. It's called the Big Bang Theory, okay? Just watch this tape.
Food. I just couldn't stop thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So, you know, I went to the fridge and I opened up the meat drawer. You know what the meat drawer is, right?
Yeah. What's in there?
Well, I'll tell you what was in there. You know that bacon that's like maple? Got maple flavor?
The maple kind, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I took that out and I thought,
Yeah.
I know who would like that. Me. So I ate it.
Kidding me.
Nope. Not kidding. You know, I also noticed there was some beef in there. Yeah, you know, steak, you know, juicy. Well, I ate that too. But I went back to the fridge just a few minutes ago, and I put something together really special. You're gonna love this one. I took some chicken. I put some cheese on it, and I covered it with
what?
covered it with cat treats. Then guess what?
What?
I gave it to the cat.
You want to have that type of attitude in your company. Once a month, we took the majority of our, it used to be Cassidy's, we took the majority of our employees. We still do it a little bit, but nowhere near what we used to do. Once a month, we'd have a deal where we'd, you know, have our monthly sales meeting, and then we'd all go to somewhere and have a couple of drinks and everything. I think that's important with everything. I'll leave you with the final couple of things, okay? Doesn't apply to all of us, but Victor and I had a stepdad that used to say to us all the time, he'd say, there are only two things, guys, there's only two things important in life. The most important thing in your life is the person you spend the rest of your life with. And half of us are still searching, okay? I'm not perfect, I'm divorced. I did find Cinderella, second go round, okay? So, as your life goes on, the person that you spend every day with and everything is the most important thing in your life. The second most important is the career that you choose that lets the two of you enjoy life together. And what's third is so far behind the first two, it doesn't matter, okay? So some of you, I know, are still out there searching. Okay, keep kissing those toad frogs. Get yourself out there. Don't go home and hibernate. What's next?